I love you too. I know, I love this.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy
How are
Monday, whatever
you?
day it
I
is.
know it's always this whole what's it? I've been noticing I'm not doing the intro, so we're gonna knock this out, and then I can't wait to ask you how your last 2 weeks
I
have
love
been.
it.
We've been on a little bit of break, but welcome to the Wolf and the Bear podcast, an educational spiritual podcast starring psychic medium and channel Miss Terry Groom and me as your host, Sophia Sterling. This podcast is to bring real spiritual knowledge channeled straight from the source or straight from our personal experiences without ego, and as Terry says, with love first and then wisdom. But
Yes.
okay, so we're kind of off a little bit. I haven't talked to you in 2 weeks, basically,
It
which is
has
a
been a
lot for us
while.
lately. What is going on? Last time we spoke, we survived the eclipse.
Yes.
We made it
We
on the
made
other
it
end of
through.
that.
Imagine that.
You and I believe was Taylor also at the Wellness Expo?
Yes, it was a busy
Yes.
weekend. Yes.
The Grapevine Wellness Expo was in town, which is an incredible local event.
Oh,
Um, it's
absolutely.
almost quarterly, correct? I think it's 5 times a year.
It is, yes, 4 or 5 times a year now. So
They do a
yes, I mean,
great
if you
thing
don't
over
catch me
there.
at this one, catch me in the one in July. We've got a lot coming up, a
100%.
lot of things.
And then you also had an investigation for your other company, your other endeavor, so to speak, in the
Yes.
spiritual world. So I
Yes,
can't wait to
indeed.
figure out what you've been up to. I've been
Oh,
not
wow.
much up to anything.
Oh, well, it's been a busy couple weeks, and I'm glad that it has been. First,
Yes.
let's talk a little bit about the weekend. It was amazing. We had a blast. Thank you to all of those that came out to see us in Grapevine. It was really a wonderful weekend. A lot of new folks, a lot of familiar faces. That was always nice. I had an opportunity to give a fun talk on Saturday, get everyone laughing and motivated. Laughter is the best form of communication. And so we did a lot of laughing and a lot of learning and communicating during a 20-minute class. So it was pretty cool.
And what was the topic you spoke on? I know you
It was
always.
basically it was making room, is creating space in a hectic
Mhm.
world. And
Mhm.
it was about what to do to alleviate just the everyday blahs. What do you do to create more space? How about creating more joy, bringing things in on your 24/7 type of week of life? And so it was really fun. We had a good conversation. One of my regulars, he's a great guy. I see him every event, and I know everything's going to be well when I look out and there's Tim. So he was at my event, and it was funny because I was talking about. I got to share this with you. I was
Yes.
talking about one of my classes one time. I was trying to find a good word to say. Don't be lazy. Don't go out there and just live a snail's pace. And so I was trying to find a term that would work. And so I came up with the term of lack of
I
locomotion.
knew that's what you were gonna say because I remember
Remember that lack of
one
locomotion?
million percent. It's the nicest
Exactly.
way to ever say that.
That's right. And so by the time someone realized that's maybe not the most complimentary term, I'm long gone, right?
1,000,000%. Oh man, I
But it was
knew.
so funny. I've got to tell
I
you
can't
that.
wait to have a book of what I call Terryisms because
Oh,
but they are truly so perfect and they are created from the desire to be sweet and kind. Like, because we
well,
have to
and
say lazy. People are, or there are circumstances that are, but the way that you
yes.
phrase things, I just think is so beautiful.
Well, it was so fun because Tim interjected in that moment, and it was perfect timing. I'm still laughing about it because we had just had the conversation. I'm a ham when I get up and talk in front of
Yes.
people, and so we were laughing and joking, and so we came up with that phrase. And I was telling them about the lack of locomotion, and they were all laughing. And Tim in the back audience yelled out. He goes, "Oh my gosh, LOL." LOL. And I went,
Oh
what? He
my
goes,
goodness.
lack of locomotion. Laugh out loud.
That's so
It
perfect.
was it was such a good segue into our conversation for those 20 minutes. They were golden. So I was very appreciative. Thank you, Tim. Thank you for the
I'm trying, have I
creativity.
met Tim or why
I'm
can't
not
I?
sure if you have or not.
Mhm.
You may have once upon a time at one of the galleries. He's a very nice gentleman. I don't know anything about him other than what I find out during my gallery reads, my mediumship reads. But I do know that he comes to my classes my talks, and
Is he the
he's just
one,
a great
forgive
guy.
me just real fast, is he the one that has the skinwalker energy?
Well, he does have a little bit about that, but it's not the one that you're
Okay,
thinking of.
because
I know which one you're thinking about.
just funny how
And
memories
so,
are.
the weekend was grand. We did a gallery last night, and that's probably why I've got dark circles under my eyes. I'm
I
still
wondered if you were
kind of
still doing
recovering.
that.
What's that?
I wondered if you were still doing the galleries.
Yes, absolutely. So we did a gallery, a mediumship gallery, and you never know what's going to happen. You never
No.
ever know what's going to occur. And that's what makes it so splendid is that, again, loved ones in the spirit world come to astral to talk to us, and they bring their personalities with them. So we talked about everything from every direction, from talking about, blueberry pies all the way to talking about pipelines, and you name it,
Mm.
we talked about it. I actually had a loved one give me a hug, and it was really cool. I've never done that. I got up and got a hug from a person in the spirit world, and I
I
could
was going to
feel
say
this.
not your loved one.
No, 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 no.
Well, I mean, no, I mean, not that I
Well,
just, that's very personal. I didn't know if you had seen, someone you were close to at one point.
you mentioned an interesting term, loved one from my side of the family.
Well, I mean,
Where are
listen,
they? Just kidding. They're
you,
still
you know,
alive. Those
yeah,
those loved ones.
good. Well, and was that, what did that feel like?
Well, it felt very energetic. I could feel the temperature, the little bit of a cool temperature. I felt a little bit of almost like a density to it. So it was very sweet. It was by someone's father
Oh,
that gave me a
wow.
hug. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
And because I know how private you are in energy. I mean, we both. Uh, at what point did you decide that you were cool with that? Because I know that. I mean, I know people want to hug you all the time, living and not living. I'm sure,
Well, you're
but
so sweet.
but you know that
we,
it's a lot. Like that's a lot, especially in
well,
spirit.
again, I look at it this way. We talk to living spirits, so I don't have a problem with energy spirits coming to me. And again, just like they would be if they were living, there'd be some that I'd say, no, I don't want you to hug on me, and there'd be some I'd like,
Doing that
bring it
side
on
pat.
in. Exactly, back pat. Well, it was already interesting because he pinched me first, and then he
Ooh,
came around to the side of me to talk to me, and I said, "Is your father typically like this in the physical world? He seems a bit of a." She looked at me. She was a flirt.
N-
I said,
oh,
"Bingo." He was such a great guy. He told me about everything he wanted to do, what he was doing. He told me about just his hobbies and and the fact that he wanted to stay longer and on and on. And it was funny. And then
he
he
wanted
asked
to
me for a
stay
hug.
longer in spirit.
And he wanted to stay longer in the physical plane. He loved the
Oh,
spirit world, but the physical plane, he felt like he didn't get to know his daughter as well.
I see. I see.
That he had
And you said
left.
what he said what he's doing. Does that mean like who he's around in spirit, or does he mean work in spirit?
Actually, more about who he is around in
Oh,
spirit. What
yeah.
he also did in the life here on Earth to get more information to me. So we were definite that it was him. It was it
Yes.
was very amazing because he was just so chatty and friendly and outgoing. And he did. He said, "Can I have a hug?" And I thought, why not? I'm sure
Well,
people that would have saw that would have probably thought that was a little weird, but I'm
and I'm
good with
feeling
it.
led to describe this to people who don't know because gallery to us means is pretty clear cut. But I would like to say, galleries are very much where you could see a practitioner in spirit really either show out and be. It's very evident that they have this connection that's very strong and they have a good education with how to receive that, or you could see some things that go really wrong because it is a very like you're up in the front, you're doing the work that you do, you're really not picking individuals necessarily, but you're in, they call it gallery reads, where it's a group of 20 or so people, if not more, and you just start churning out the messages as they come to you and trying to organize them to be discernible enough for the person that they're for to receive it. And what nobody understands, and I get this misunderstanding a lot, communication is not like, hi, I'm Ellen's grandmother, I'd really like to tell her I love her. You just start getting images. You just see an apron that's a certain color, you see baking, and then suddenly before you know it you see maybe someone who's 7 and you're like, well, who was baking with their seemingly grandmother around 7? And you just have to hope that somebody remembers enough and is like, because it's just not easy. It's probably what I would say from my maybe naive perspective, the hardest thing to do, and you open yourself up to the most judgment because nobody is really necessarily inclined to see you as a person. They see you as a service. and you're up there to do a service and impress them. And it's very different than, hi, Terry, groom, the person. I'd like to schedule with you as a person. It's like, hey, do that thing that you say you do. So, and you know what I mean? Like I think that it can be a little bit of a callous, it can be beautiful, but I definitely, you feel it in the crowd. Like, hey, they expect something kind of magical. And so I always admire you to the moon and back, because I've been in your galleries. And I've never been in another person's gallery, but I've seen videos of them. And sometimes, I don't know, I just think you're really accurate. And I think that you get the room onto your side very quickly, because you're doing authentic work and people feel that. So I'm glad you had a really good gallery.
Thank you. You're so sweet. She's so kind to me, folks.
No, I just love you. It's true, though. I mean,
I love you.
We've heard some galleries in the South.
Well, the thing about it, originally when I first started mediumship, I will tell you, it was something that I did not want to do. I didn't want to go in and start involving myself with those on the other side. I didn't know exactly who was going to show up. I have a lot of reservations about my own family and those in the spirit side. I don't allow them to come and chat with me, regardless of what your philosophies are about healing or not healing on the other side. I just made a choice not to. So when I first started mediumship, it was a little bit tricky for me because I really didn't want to. And I spoke to my team, my spirit guides, and I said, I, Brutus, he's my primary gatekeeper. I said, I, Brutus, don't push me this way. I'm not sure why I'm being led this direction.
Wow.
And
How old were you?
Every client I'd see people around them and I was like, seriously, are you really doing this to me?
What age were you when this started really showing up as a topic?
Well, I will tell you, I've been seeing energy all of my life.
Right.
But I've been keeping it to myself. So really, I started being more open about it in my 20s.
Okay.
Now, that was a long time ago. And it took me a long time to come to the conclusion that this was okay. Because more than anything, I didn't want to be just like everybody else out there and all my students. I understand not wanting to be wrong.
Right.
Because when you talk to loved ones, when you have the confidence of a client that you are reaching out to their loved ones, there's a lot of responsibility to that. And I don't take it lightly. I am not the medium that's going to sit there and just BS my way through it. I'm just not going to do that. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that tend to go that direction. They'll just make stuff up and hope that you don't catch on. And now, is that cynical for me to say it that way? Well, maybe so, but I'll tell you, I've seen enough of it to know that it exists.
Well, and, Terry, I feel like if I start talking about this, you're always the one who has to hold me back because, I got a mouth on me and I get hot because I think it's so wrong. But we love of any dynamic, but with those that are deceased, there's love and loss connected.
Yes.
And so to me, those stakes are so much higher. And you feel that same way because we have respect to the living and we have respect to the living spirit. It's like if they're sitting there not saying anything about what you're saying, it's a bad look for everybody. And spiritually, I think, karmically, but...
Well, sure. And, as we delve a little deeper into what happens in a gallery, first and foremost, we want to connect. I mean, any good medium is going to want to actually do what they're up there to do. And, there's a lot of opportunities for people to get up there and say, oh, look at that. I have someone with the letter J. And, 10 people in the audience is going to have someone in their family with the letter J, and they're sitting on the edge of their seats and they're looking and they're begging that it's them, it's them, it's them. And then the medium can go, well,
and those J names are men.
Yeah. And this is a male J. Oh, half the audience now gets that sad look because Janie's not there and Jane's not there. But now Jerry might be there. So then we narrow it down a little more, and this falsehood, this medium goes, I have an uncle. Well, now we've narrowed it down another 20% to 30%. So what he's doing or she's doing is fishing for information. You've got to be strong on your feet. You've got to be resilient to the information. You've got to not judge it or critique it or expect anything other than the message to hopefully be correct. So I always tell people, I caution them in a gallery, if someone is sitting there picking you for information, you probably paid too much. If you paid anything at all, you still paid too much.
Well, yeah. And two, we recognize that fear, shame, guilt, those are all really dense emotions that are felt in the body. So it's
Yes.
like the more that if you're off, which I've been before, if you're looking out and there's nobody responding to what you're saying,
Right.
you feel fear that you're gonna get ostracized, the shame, and then it gets even harder to make those connections. So it really is a slippery slope. And I would definitely say, this is not something I would take on. I feel like I'm okay at what we do, but this is something that I would definitely defer to the sort of the much more skilled, because it's not for the faint of heart. And we have to
Well,
be careful with our connection to not damage it, because it's like, if I go up on a gallery and I really blow it, I may be scared to go into spirit for a while. So that could be a mistake of me.
well, sure. And I understand that and I get it and I've been there too, but we must always remember that our ego is our issue. And I mean that in a gentle,
Whoa,
loving
that's so
way, but our ego
true.
is our issue. So
Oh,
we have to go up there with the information that is sound, meaning I'm not coming up with this. I'm not picking through my brain to get your facts. I'm asking your loved ones to come forward and be accurate with me. So when I
yeah. That faith in the quiet, maybe more than anything.
And that's exactly what it is. It's faith in the quiet and in the stillness. But I will tell you, for me, one of my favorite things to do when I have a gallery that says 20 or less, my specificness with that type of gallery is I play what I refer to as the old fashioned game of duck, duck, goose. So I don't want to go in front of a group of 20 people and say, "Oh, I've got a man in spirit who likes music." Yeah, okay. That's 15 out of the 20. So
Right.
I like to go up there and say, "You, hi there. Who are you? Oh my gosh, you got a man around you. He's telling me that he was a really good dancer.
Smart.
He feels like a cousin, possibly an uncle, but right now he's just showing me his shoes. He's a good dancer. He's playing around on the floor and he's showing me that he misses his old-fashioned music." So
Mm,
what I'm doing then is I'm not just going out there throwing, information out to the audience for them to pick on. I'm
you're picking
simply
the
going to the
person
first
first.
person, right? I'm going to the person, and it's not that I go in the rows and and sometimes people have no idea who's next, but I try always, and again I'm not 100% accurate, but I do try to go straight to the person with the data, so I'm not throwing out I've got some father into the audience,
Right.
because
Because we've all
somebody's
got a
father is
father.
going to be in spirit.
Well, the two for you, again, that's like another thing I would say gives evidence to the fact that you really do know what you're doing, because I think that for some people who have a more tenuous connection, that would be way scarier. You see what I mean?
Well,
And so there is that where it's like, that's because of the way that your gifts are, and because you could sit there, and if you defocus, it's just a cacophony.
right.
Whereas maybe for some people, you would be trying to back out as much as you can to wait for the strongest message to come through. So there is a lot of like how sensitive versus, because I think that that's a curiosity too.
Well, what I recommend, and the way I feel that the teaching of this particular modality should be is, when you can go up in front of people and forget that you have the living sitting in front of you, because you have so many people in the spirit world that you're communicating with, then you're onto
Mm,
something. And as I was
mm,
telling the and participants, I mean, there's participants, teachers, students, whomever, whatever you want to call them, as they were sitting there, I was letting them know, up front, and giving them my apologies if I forgot they were there,
mm.
because I'm not really there to sit and chit chat and find out how their day was at the
That's a
wellness
great
expo.
point.
My job is to chit chat to their loved ones, and I just want them to pay attention. And that's what I'll say: pay attention. We're going to
Mm,
talk a lot. We're going to talk fast. We're going to get your people. Pay attention. I'm going to ask you a question here and there, but it's not going to be, "Do you have a family member in spirit? Yes or no." Next
hmm.
question: "Do
Well,
you have a father?" I see that and it drives me crazy. I'm like, "Hey, you got a father in the spirit world. It feels like a father. Is this your dad? He's a great guy." I'm looking at it. He hates his glasses. He's showing me these glasses. So what I'm doing is I'm communicating with the spirit, and
mm.
I'm having the loved one follow along and keep up.
One thing that I did whenever I got readings with you was I recorded it all. And I can't remember. I think I got that from something else. I was like, I need to record. Oh, my therapist said to record it. She
I
was like,
love
she
it.
talks a lot, and I was like, okay, I'll record it. But it was
Everyone says I talk a lot.
well, no, but she was just saying it's overwhelming. I remember that. So I recorded it, but I had a client recently, her husband and her sat down with me and they set up to record, and you get that little bit of anxiety right at the front end because I'm like, oh
Yes.
God, now if I'm bad at this, there's evidence. But then but I was like, you know what? No, I know why they're here. I think I can help. I actually helped because they didn't know how to work their phone. And there was just this moment of like, this deserves to be recorded. And I
Hmm.
helped them set it up. And then we had an
Yep.
amazing reading. And I didn't worry anymore about them needing to understand parts of it as it got
Yes.
faster. Because I was like, this isn't more important than them like getting comfortable now, and they can replay it.
Absolutely.
So cool. But I mean, God.
You know what I'm going to suggest for anyone out there, any listener, any viewer of this, and anyone, to get over the fear of someone recording your work, offer it straight up out front every client you deal with. That way it's never a surprise when they're recording.
You told me about the legal, where you had a client that was of a legal background. And you're
Yes.
like, well, listen, I am aware. I don't remember if it was said out loud or not, if it was recorded, but you had an awareness that it was. You're
Yeah,
like,
well,
well,
yes.
just another day.
Just another day in what we do. And that goes, again, folks, when you are giving messages and you're expressing yourself, whether it's in mediumship or else other places and elsewhere, make sure you are also giving some of the what's the term for it? When I say to you, I am not a medical doctor, I'm a medical empath. Do not disregard your medical advice. I am only an empath, happy to help you. So you're giving disclaimers. Thank you. That's the name of it. Uh, so make sure you have those disclaimers in place,
Yep.
because you're right. The recordings are perfect, long listening evidence.
Well, I do think I would say, the not the what do you call it? The reward outweighs the risk when it comes to certain things, because it is nice whenever, I mean, as far as client building goes, whenever somebody can be like, hey, check this out. And you just, I couldn't know that about somebody. So then it
Exactly.
does create a question of, well, how do I know that? Well, maybe there's something to this.
Maybe there's something to this. It's really sweet. I had a grandmother, real sweet lady. She came through and she was talking to me. She was chatting to me. I could tell that she probably was a very social woman in her life, a lot of time that she would have spent in church and community. So at one point, I told her granddaughter, I said, just give me a minute here. Your grandma wants to talk to me. I said, I'm going to
Ooh.
talk out loud so you'll hear us, but your grandmother and I are having a conversation. So just bear with me. So it was so funny because her grandmother literally, and I could even get into that moment because it was so fun. Her grandmother was like, you're not wearing any lipstick. You don't wear lipstick? I miss my lipstick. I had it and it would dry up, but I loved it. And then my lips started cracking and then it would stick and I hated that. I always looked at everybody at church with that and it just would look funny. Are you going to wear lipstick? And that was the conversation I had with her grandmother. Now, again, I didn't just walk away with her grandmother and go to my own corner. But I told her, I said, we're going to have this conversation for a moment because she's asking me things that aren't applying to you. So bear with me, and I'm going to do this for whatever
Suddenly she's
reason
the
this is
client.
important. Right. For whatever reason this is important. And so then I visited with grandma. Now I said out loud everything I was hearing and saying, and she could hear what I was answering with. At the end of it, she was in tears. She said my grandmother loved her lipstick. That was a conversation she had all the time with people about making sure her lips had lipstick. She loved lipstick.
There are
So
no
for her
accidents.
to say that to me was validating evidential evidence for her loved one.
It was a feeling I just got. So tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm open to that. Whenever we talk about that communication can be challenging from the other side, do they do that? Because I just got this feeling of, if she has said and had that conversation multiple times, was it easier for her to redo that because there was such an imprint of her memory, as opposed to try and find the language to bring out some other evidence? Because if there's no accidents and everything kind of has a purpose, but you couldn't have, to you as the medium, it just felt like she was chatting because that was what she wanted to talk about.
Right.
So was that because it was easier for her to bring the validation in this sort of dynamic fashion, as opposed to some other version that maybe a male energy who is less superfluous would do? I'm just curious.
Well, and that's a really good question, and it's interesting because, and this is my oddity, and I call it my oddity because when I understand your question, but I also look at every spirit I ever have spoken to as sitting in front of me. So if you're sitting in front of me and you're going, hey, I'm kind of worn out today, not going to talk much. Hey, what's your lipstick looking like? And we're having just a basic whatever conversation, then I'm not really feeling anything different than I would if I have a spirit on the other side going, hey, here I am, what's up? so
Oh,
so my take is for this is it's not just what they can remember or ascertain from a conversation or a playback. In my way, I look at them as they are there. They are coming through the astral, their personality's in place. If they were a chatterbox in the physical world, they still are. If they were aloof and distant and quiet in the other world, in the physical world, then they might be the same in the spirit world. But that's not always the case. I have one real, he actually always calls me this is so cool. I'm his little sister. And I'll take it. I've always wanted a big brother that talked to me. So, whether living or in the spirit world. So, so I'm considered his little sister. But he is lightened up a lot in the spirit world. And I had a long conversation in front of his wife about what changed. So we get feedback too about
Ooh.
their lives and what's changed and the evolution of change there. And there's things they're not going to tell me, and it's pretty consistent with each of them that I don't find certain things out. But this particular energy, love him to death. He's a great guy, but he was a little bit distant, and a little bit cranky in the physical world. Well, he's realized in the other world, of the spiritual realms, that he didn't need to hold on to that. That there really wasn't any reason to be cranky. It was not
Damn.
like he was late for something or he
Just
felt
remember to
bad
be
or
that way.
right. He didn't need to be that way. So he chose not to be. But he was very straightforward about it. Like, yeah, I'm not as crabby as I used to be. I'm still hungry, even though, and they always say that, which is funny. I don't know why all these spirits are hungry. I wish I had them all at my house because I would eat them. I'd get them something to eat. But have you had
That's
that?
I have.
Yes.
Well, and yeah, but I mean, it's got to be something that you miss.
It must be when they
That
talk the physical
creation.
world. Yes.
So the consumption and creation. So they mentioned missing cooking.
Yes.
They miss music in the same way that we receive it. And it's
Yes.
so funny to me because I think that, everybody, I realize I'm in different corners than you, but it's like people try to say, oh, like there's attachments to modern music. I'm like, okay, maybe that's true. Great. There's attachments to everything. I really
Mhm.
feel. But oh, that's me. Sorry. But it's like, well, then why did Spirit talk about it and miss it
Yeah.
and mention artists that they like? If this
Yes.
was tethered to something so dark, they'd never mention it again. So
Right.
that's, I think, something very cool is that it's like, well, it these aspects can be true about the density of our reality. But guess what? On the spirit side, when people talk about, well, to be spiritual, you should be fasted. Look, it says it in the Bible. Look, da 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 da. This is how you should be. It's like, well, then why do people in spirit talk about how much they miss cake and how much they miss celebratory, gluttonous events, really, and without shame? They don't sit there like, oh, because of this, I had to sit in purgatory for X amount of days, but I mentioned it because it was nice. No, like, right? Like, I don't
And that
know.
makes perfect sense. And the other part of this that's real important, Sterling, is to go to kind of the early stages of mediumship. For the longest time, mediums were trained, they were told that you were only to reach them in the echelons of the highest, meaning heaven. If you were looking at it
Mhm.
from whatever religion or whatever belief system, whatever your heaven would be, the upper echelon. So if we were only talking to spirit that was from that particular dimension, say for instance, then we would recognize that there would be a lapse of care. So
Mm.
let me illustrate it for you just for a moment. So if I'm coming up from the upper echelon and I'm going to talk to a loved one from heaven, my opinions, my emotions, my passions for things, the emotions of it would be more muted, right? So we see as muted. So
Mhm.
the muted side of this would mean that you would hear conversation that would be much more like, I love you. I know that life is going to improve. It's a beautiful world we live in. And I love that. They're happy. They're in the collective. There's no peaks. There's no issues. They're in the collective. Energy is wonderful. They are kumbayaing and playing harps and, wearing robes or whatever they would do in that upper echelon. And they are just happy. And I'm so grateful for that. I want that for them, obviously. But I can't have a decent conversation with a loved one who's just constantly telling me, oh, I love you so much. Especially if this was the person that left the child that I'm sitting in front of at the age of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
100%.
When I have that and I have the client in front of me and I'm saying, oh, Dad loves you so much, she's not believing a word I'm saying. Now, he
And it
may
means
be
nothing
saying
to
that.
her.
Right. Because that doesn't mean anything. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't solve anything. It doesn't do anything. So in my work, I want a personality. I want to go to where they can come to me. Rise my vibration up so they can come to me in the astral.
Mm-hmm.
So I say, okay, put your personality on. I want to get you where you have your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at no peaks, now we start getting emotions. So we have a peak. So then I hear about the dislikes. I hear about the likes. I hear about all the wonderful things that made them in their life.
The
It's
family
not
drama.
the same as here. Because here we're all peaks, right? We're all peaks. I
That's a
hate
good
this.
point.
I love
Oh,
this. I have
yes.
this. We're all about peaks.
I had a great day, or my day was awful.
Yes. So if we can get them where they are able to discuss with us things they would have discussed with us in the living world of on Earth, then we've got something to work with. Now, I want to also say, I am not a therapist. I am not a licensed therapist, psychologist, psychotherapist. I am not. Okay, I'm a life coach, and I'm a very intuitive one. So I'm going to sit there, and I have many times. I have literally sat with families that had to work out some trouble with a loved one on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very common thing. It's a very common thing to do where there was unspoken words, things were said and not healed.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do that, I take that very seriously. I take that with a loving heart. I don't go in and fabricate it. If it's not coming out happy, I shorten the session and we try it again or we don't. But I can't tell you how many hearts have healed. And it brings tears to my eyes. How many hearts have healed by sitting to bring tears to my eyes? Just to connect to a loved one and to be able to feel through the problem, to work through the problem, to get past the problem, to get to a place where there's a communication that isn't about devaluing each other or about dismissing each other or being torturous or whatever it may be, to come to a realization that there can be, even on the other side, even after death, there can be a resolution. So to me, that mediumship is joyful and amazing, but it's also a serious matter. And
it's spiritual medication or
Yes.
spiritual healing. It's something that
Yes.
in every other culture for many, many years was a protected class.
Yes.
Because of the delicacy of, the soul. If you go Native American, which you and I have a background there spiritually.
Yes.
But, they call the soul like a butterfly. It's so skittish. So it requires that delicacy and that love. So I think that what you do and what I do sometimes and what, it's an important, when done with authenticity and love, it's well, if we perceive injury, it's like maybe pulling a splinter out. It's like maybe you can heal now. Maybe obviously the pain was there, but down the timeline, it's like, okay, that's one less thing to worry about. I know my dad loved me. I know he couldn't show it. He's sorry he couldn't show it. I'm sorry I couldn't receive it. And then now what?
Well, exactly. And one of the beautiful tools that we have as a life coach, as I call it life coaching from the other side. One of the beautiful tools that we have at our disposal is just pure connection. We don't have to guard our words. We don't have to ask, so what do you think? What do you feel? And I love that. And I have a lot of respect for those fields that are more of that nature. And obviously I have a lot of really cool friends that do that for a living. And they kind of get mad at me sometimes. They're like, you can go in there and just make a mess of everything and get things done.
Yes.
Of course I can.
Well, it's like a gentle massage over one that hurts. Like I give
Right.
really hard massages, but I think that it's worth the time if I'm getting to the part that's going to release later.
Yes.
So I agree with you. I thought about that the other day recently because I was like, I can get through so much faster some topics because I'll just
Yes.
call it like what energy's telling me. And this happened
Absolutely.
recently. No, you are insecure about that, and you're self-sabotaging this other thing because you can't get over this deservability thing. It's like
Right.
that's what they're telling me. If you're a talk therapist, God, that's got to take a lot of time to get someone to admit that.
Right.
I would
Because you
argue. I
can't.
don't know.
Right, you can't go in there and just throw that on the table and then take out the moving parts. You've
The
got to
guys
take
are
and do.
tattling on you, actually, and da 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 da.
Well, it's so funny. I've got one more thing to share about the gallery.
Of course.
And again, you never know what's going to happen. That's what I love about it. There's a level of excitement. Yes, and you get a little anxious. You're the only one standing up in front of an audience, but it's also very exciting. I
Mm-hmm.
had it's funny. I had one of my participants. She came and she brought me a beautiful bouquet of flowers. It was so sweet of her. And so I had the flowers and I put them on the stage and I was walking around, and everything. And a grandmother popped through and a grandmother started talking about my flowers. And there were many different colors. She was telling me how much she loved flowers. And then she said, I had shoes the color of some of those flowers. And so she was telling me about her colorful shoes and the different colors. And she said, well, ask her. She knows that because my daughter, her mother has some just like that. And I'm like, whoa, we're going everywhere tonight.
Oh no!
And her
oh yes.
her granddaughter was saying, oh my gosh, she had shoes in every possible color. And my mother, which was her, the spirit's daughter, has them in every color. That's their thing, is shoes.
Oh, that's
And
so
it was
funny.
so funny because and literally, and I kid you not, I know if you're in my gallery, you're going to think I'm either a fruitcake or just some weirdo.
Nope.
But and I said, well, do you want to see him better? So I brought him over to where she was sitting, the spirit energy. I said, do you like him? And she said, yeah. She goes, how come my granddaughter hasn't given me any?
Oh no!
So long story short, it was funny. Her granddaughter laughed. Her granddaughter, to honor that, is going to buy some flowers and honor her grandmother by putting some flowers in a vase on her table and to honor her. Just say,
Oh,
Grandma,
wow.
here's yours.
Oh wow!
Because we know that the worlds are very, very close together. They're very intertwined.
Well, that's a beautiful segue to something I wanted to ask you about spirit and about that, how thin that relationship is. Especially with things of, I would say, color and vibrancy, right, of flowers. But there's sort of these attractors, right? So,
yes.
And I think that there is an attraction to beautiful things because there's an innate goodness. Like beauty is, truly a vibration on some sense. We see that in symmetric shapes. We just,
Yes.
It honestly, it's starting to look a lot like sacred geometry is what we perceive as close enough to beautiful.
Right.
And then through beauty is profound. And then through profound is divinity, right? So beauty kind of is that arc. So when we leave things like beautiful flowers that we perceive as absolutely beautiful, or some of the trinkets I keep that are either gifts or that I think are just beautiful. And so I've been like that since a kid. So it's like you do tether yourself, I think, maybe a little bit closer to the spirit you're hoping to be a part of, or even just to bringing that beauty, that divinity, that veil that crosses between what we understand and don't.
Yes.
Might be beautiful things.
Yes.
It's kind of weird, but cool.
Well, and that's well said. That is. There is a connection towards beautiful things and colorful things. Now, again, some of the men on the other side that I've dealt with wouldn't say that. Because I've got some.
They're like, "Where's my saw and my guns?"
Yeah, I've got a lot of military men on the other side that I talk to, and they're very stoic and there's very So I can't talk to them about flowers and gemstones.
That's a fair point, but talk about a good knife or a vintage gun, and you've got them.
That's exactly right. You hit the nail on the head there. It really, mediumship is just such a remarkable journey. And hey, I understand it's a scary thing. I mean, I didn't want to do it. I fought it tooth and nail. I was like, stop bringing your loved ones with you because now I have to talk to them.
Well, that's it. And I did, curious question about this. I don't know, but vintage guns. Um, it's like there are things that have an innate job.
Mhm.
Realistically, we understand what the job of a gun is. But if it takes on this heirloom status, if it takes on this like this person that you love, he just cleaned it every day, all
Yes.
day.
Mhm.
And so I think that there's like don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. People will say, "Oh, there are certain items that are just bringers of death." Da 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 da. It's like sure, but guess what? They're also maybe the bringers of safety and your sense of security for your loved ones and your family. So
Yes.
like that's I don't know. To me, those are not so far away. Like we
No,
can't judge that the same way. And I'm a firm I get anxious around guns. I'm not a fan of guns, but it's one of those things where I've had to come into no, people sometimes cling to those because it means their safety. It
it's
makes
about
them
their
feel safe
safety.
with their family.
That's
It,
right.
it makes them feel like they own something. Like if they can defend their property, they must own it. And we know many people have deservability issues. So maybe these
Yes.
things anchor their belongings to them because it means they so I don't know. It's just a flyaway thought
Well,
as we were
and
talking about.
there's validity in that, and I agree with that. If this is, a favored object in the physical world, and the loved one is in the spiritual world, well, that favored object does become a conduit to energy. It is still a favorite item, and having that around is a likely tool to use as again that conduit to bring the energy towards you. And what I really and Sterling, this is really a valuable point. What you've said, and I love that, and I love you to pieces. It's what you do is there is a way to look at things that are just more valuable. We get caught up in a society, and again, no judgment here, but we get caught up with trying to find ways to be insulted, or trying to find ways to be afraid, or trying to
Mhm.
find modalities that are out to get us all. There's a lot of fear in our communities, in our world, and I get it. I'm here too. I live in the physical earth too,
Mhm.
and so there's reasons for some of that. But what I love is sometimes we just have to say, you know what? It may not be what I would go for, or want, or need, or buy, or whatever, but it doesn't matter. It's not harmful unless I make it harmful.
I saw this thing the other day, and my guides were talking about in the reverse order, but it was talking about that our depth of knowledge about anything is pretty bad. Like none
Yes.
of us
Yes.
deserve to feel as confidently as we do because he said if
Yeah.
somebody asks you why 3 times, you're usually out of information in the
Right.
modern era. But what my guides were just saying was it's like you can see something, but can you keep attaching and? So it's like a gun is a bringer of death, yes, and it's
And
also an element of protection, yes, and that
right.
it can be the difference between life and death for yourself, yes, and and so as you go further into these things, it's really impossible to keep a polarized perspective because it's
Yes.
very rare that we have something that is innately so
True.
polarizing.
Right.
So but I have trouble with that when I with people. It's like I
Yes.
can conceptualize items and objects kind of around being afraid of them or maybe even events. But sometimes I can get to the point where I'm like, well, there's no yes and you've done something that I don't like. And then now as I've continued to grow and continue to get older, some yes and sneak through and I'm like, well, I
Yes.
can't be that mad because yes and also you had this happen. So
You're right. Yes. And
it's an accordion. Sometimes I'm great at it, sometimes I'm not. But
exactly. And again, for those listeners and viewers, we're not bashing or condoning or doing anything to the Second Amendment. We're just talking,
no,
okay?
we're in
We're just
Texas. We know what
communicating.
side we're on.
Don't get so caught up that you're like, oh gosh, here we go, petition this. It's just what we're talking about is basically beloved objects and things that matter to an individual, and other reasons. And we'll throw
Well,
that wonderful and in there again.
and the reason I was thinking about this was I was hanging out with a gentleman friend, and he has this. He's military background, and he has this gun, and I don't get the feeling that it was ever really utilized for much. But it's like got this embleming that's just beautiful,
Mhm.
and I don't like guns; they make me nervous. But I remember thinking, there's a beauty here that I can't look away from, and I don't know why. And it's on a topic that I don't usually find very beautiful. So I was curious. It was definitely an exercise in thought, but
I love that. And you know what I love about that as well is that there really is no judgment there. And I love the
mm-mm,
fact that you added an and to that particular instance. Because if that means the world to him, then you know what? Let it be. Let it be with
mm-hmm.
something. I'm not saying you have to condone and you have to adhere to everyone else's ideologies, but simply understand that they have a right to feel that way and exist as well.
Well,
I love it.
to a curiosity about and then I want to jump to this. We'll pivot here in a second, just to the investigation. But we could also apply this same yes and to the amount of I was very sort of blasé about the eclipse. I kind of was judgmental in a way I didn't anticipate myself to be. Where I was like, why are people flying in? This just feels crazy. Da 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 da. And I will say I missed the majority of it because I was inside cooking. Honestly, I was like, whatever. And I looked outside and it looked like it was dark. And I thought,
Was.
oh, this is that thing that and I kind of looked outside and I saw a little bit of it, but it was this sort of weird feeling where I thought I have been way too judgmental and down on this for it to be as cool as it was. And then I brought that up at work to other people, like tables and stuff, and I
Yes.
would say, "Oh, I was so judgmental. It was the coolest thing ever." And everyone said the same thing. They were like, "Yeah,
It's
we thought it was
amazing.
kind of silly, and now it was really really cool." Um,
Yes.
but you were up to some fun things the night before.
Oh my gosh, yes, indeed. Most of the night, in fact. We did an
Oh,
amazing investigation at a local business here in Garland, Texas, and it was phenomenal. Just amazing
really?
owner of the business. And I can't reveal much about the names or any of that,
Yes.
but we had a blast. We had a class recently that, as part of their certification, they needed to do at least one of the two investigations.
Mhm.
And so we went to this fantastic restaurant. And it was so cool because I have to tell you, I used to manage restaurants once upon a time in another chapter.
I love it.
And so as we were there waiting for the patrons to pack it out, they were leaving
And
and
you mean in spirit? Or
no, actually those
you
that
mean
were
people
sitting there
leaving? Okay. I
eating,
was confused. I was
those
like,
that are
wait, what are we
eating.
talking about? We got to clarify.
That's a good point. That's right. Which side of the veil are we talking
Yeah.
about?
Talk
So
about
the
missing food, right?
I
They're lining
know,
up.
exactly. So the humans that were there and the ones that were in living on Earth, that's funny. They would leave and they'd leave their stuff on the table just like you do at any restaurant, right? Dishes and your drink cups and et cetera, et cetera. So because I love the restaurant business, I always have. I started bussing tables. And it was funny
That's
because one of my
so
students asked
funny.
me, "Is that what we have to do that too? Is that part of the
No,
training?"
that's so funny.
And I'm like, "If you want to, I don't care."
Your body's moving before you know it.
I loved it. So before long, I was bussing the tables, and the cool bus boy was like, "You don't have to do that, ma'am." I love being called ma'am. It tells me how old I am. But so I said, "No, you don't get it. This I like this." So I bussed the tables, and then I moved the chairs all back together, and then I started getting the floor clean, and before I knew it, so was everyone in my team. It was fun. So then we started our work. We did a paranormal investigation. You never know what you're going into. I will tell you that right now. I've been caught off guard by energies before that have where I thought there was nothing at all, only to find out that there was a lot more there than one would have expected. And so we did find a lot of energy. I immediately, before we even did anything other than the pleasantries, hi, I'm Terry Groom, and shaking hands and all that good stuff. I already came into contact with one that was definitely there, and it was actually one that was invited there. So what we
Mm.
do see in investigations, especially in businesses, is that they can build a reputation of knowing and having an energy there. And there were actually two that were very familiar to this restaurant tier, and
Mm.
and they were there, and I saw them both. But we also recognize when we have a lot of employees and a lot of patrons, a lot of customers come in, we have a lot of different energies moving to and fro. And
Mhm.
so we did come up with a lot of information. We have some amazing evidence, and I can't really reveal much of that. I can't wait to talk to the restaurateur. But I
Oh,
also
that'd be
want to tell any of
amazing.
those that are interested in doing paranormal work to do it correctly. You need several opportunities, several venues, several ways to get data. And I
Mm-hmm.
can tell you that if you're only there for 3 hours, but you have 10 cameras, you've got 30 hours of data to stare at. And then you have the same for audio. So
Mm-hmm.
what we recognize is that could be in itself, that could take you 50, 60 hours just for a short session. And we were there till almost 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh
So
my
we have
goodness.
lots of footage we're still running through, but we did catch a lot of information.
Yeah.
It was really cool. We enjoyed it. We had a blast. We had some different energy there than one was expecting to be there. The students got a lot of opportunity to get, that some were touched. Some
Mm,
saw things with the naked eye, just looking out and going, whoa, there it is. We had a lot of equipment. It was quite profound. So we were excited about that. And of
good. I
course, we
love
come
that.
home, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning,
Ooh,
and so we got a little sleep before the eclipse, and I will tell you that was an amazing view. We recognize that we have just a little spot in this great Earth of ours, and we're not that really that big or that important in the big picture, but
mm-hmm.
obviously we're important enough. That's what makes us here. But it was just profound to be able to witness and to view the eclipse. So I was one of those also that was like, in the big picture it's going to be or not be. And I don't have
Mm-hmm.
any say one way or the other. So let it evolve.
Did you feel, because I'll speak for myself, but I admit 10 million times over every time, I just don't think I have as much sensitivity as you. I didn't feel much difference energetically for the experience. I felt the excitement of the collective, but I don't think that was like something in the physical, you know what I mean? That was its own peak, man-made, so to speak. Did you feel something either leading up to or when it was occurring? Anything different?
Well, that's a really good question because I would have been the first person to say, again, this we make a lot of this our reality, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not I'm not putting down those that I hear time and time again. Oh my God, it's retrograde, and now I don't have to take any responsibility over my issues because that's why it's retrograde. Now I did say that in a very not nice way. People, you are in charge of your own existence.
I
I
just
can
had that
tell you in that
happen.
special time every month, I don't get a free pass.
Mm-mm.
I don't get to say,
No,
oh, I'm going to do XYZ because I've got this happening in my body. So I'm going to go back, and now I've probably ticked off half the listeners.
no, but uh,
But
I'm with
if you
you.
have an experience, you have to rise up to the experience as well. And I will tell you though, I felt a vibration from it,
Mm-hmm.
and I
What
did
did
feel
it feel positive or did
vibration.
it feel confusing?
It didn't feel confusing. It almost felt to me a little unworldly in the sense that, and I know this sounds kind of strange because right after that, I had a lot of things I had to get done around the house, and I felt like I was a little bit almost like walking on air rather than feeling the
Mm.
ground under my feet. It was a little odd. The vibration felt almost like I'd been kind of. There's a term for it, and I can't
A
get.
blurred line.
What's that?
Or was it almost like a blurred line of like the real, like it
Yes,
just was like,
it
where is
was.
the ground?
Yes, it was very odd. And it felt like a
Interesting.
faint vibration. And what was fascinating is I had a really long day the next day. And so I was inquiring with my students and, my gallery that night, if anyone had had these effects. And I did have a few people that said the same thing. They felt like their,
Mm-hmm.
their footing was a little off. So whatever caused that, I don't know. Again, I didn't take to my bed terrified,
Right.
covering my head, wondering why my vibration was vibrating.
Right,
so
right, right. Of course.
so we, and for those, and now I feel a little guilty. Oh gosh, imagine
No,
that.
don't be,
I feel a little
not with
guilty for
me.
saying that. Folks, I am not telling you what to feel. That is not my need nor my right. But I also don't like it when people make excuses for behavior. So
Well, I will mention just to, because this is literally just happened. I had a client who, I started to get the feeling that this person is not particularly interested in feeling better, which is really hard for me because I'm so determined to like get to a solution.
yeah,
But something was said and it blew my brain out because it was that we were going into a like the Mercury in retrograde, which is already like a 3-week thing. 3 weeks,
yes.
right? And then this person mentioned that then there's a 2-week lead up into it and a
Mhm.
2-week lead up out of it that
Yes.
was preventing this individual from applying to jobs in
And
a situation where they hated their job and they were most likely being pushed out. So there's really a timetable of stability that is not in this person's control. And then they are basically saying, because of these things, if I get a job in the 2 weeks before, the 3 weeks of, or the 2 weeks after, it's going to be terrible for my life. Is basically the message I was receiving from this person. And I thought, I mean, I said it as well as I could, but it was the first time I've heard it to that degree of a real person saying, I'm going to stop life for this.
well, and see, and that's in that instance, that's exactly what they were doing. They were putting life on hold. Now, I will tell you, and I have to be delicate here because I have some really good, valuable. When I say valuable, I mean heart valuable colleagues and friends that do a lot of amazing astrology. And I do believe. I'll tell you, I am a Gemini, just in case you're wondering. So I do
Mm-hmm.
see some of the synchronicities there. But I also want to say, regardless of what you're being told, you are a living, breathing individual that has a life that you're responsible for living. Whether you're an independent solo act at home or you've got a family of five that's relying on you, you have that responsibility to live. Now, sometimes do we paddle against the current? Yes, I do believe we paddle against the current sometimes. I feel that's just nature of living in this particular existence. So does that mean instead of paddling against the current, we should just go ahead and hide out, go under the proverbial covers and pretend that it's not our fault or not our job or not our responsibility? That's where I get a little sidetracked because I'm agreeing
100%.
with you, Sterling. If I had a need to put food on my table, I'm going to tell you something. I'd grab three paddles and I would paddle against the current and
1
get the
million
job,
percent.
whether it was the time of the year, the time of the month, or the time on the calendar, or the time in the sky. I would do that. So,
Yeah.
yes, believe, and believe whatever you wish, because that's not my job to tell you otherwise. But use realism when it comes to living a life.
Well, and the natal charts, and that's something that I recently have really gotten into and studied. And I
Right.
think that there's a reality where um, you use these pedal in and out, right? There's
Hmm.
tides, and they even, if you want to go into Hermetic teachings, right, which is where some of this is written in Greek, which is where we get
Yes.
some of it
Hmm.
from. But it's like he says that it's like the second tenet of the godly rules, the godly laws, is he says that energy functions in tides.
Yes.
So when people will say
Yes.
like, oh, you know, girls have, now it's kind of almost a red flag for a female to mention astrology in dating or whatever, because it's like people do abuse it and they say, oh, I'm this way because of this, and really they're being unkind. But there is a reality here that says there are tides that are there.
Yes.
And if you want
Absolutely.
to attune yourself to those tides,
Yes.
then this
There's
knowledge
realism
will be
here.
helpful.
Hmm.
And you will do that better and well with this education background. But just like words that are said to you in a language you don't understand, they can't really hurt your feelings because you don't really understand what was said to you. And so it's in that same vein of like, if you don't hyper focus on where the energy might be preferential to the collective, you're not going to notice when it's quote unquote against you, but you also won't notice when it's with you. So that's the trade off.
It is a
But
trade-off.
if you have a victim mentality about it, and every time you look up, because I guarantee you, knowing what I know about how dense that package of information is, every single day there's something that's not ideal.
Well,
That's
and
period. But they focus on the
absolutely.
one that's public.
That's exactly right. That's why, again, I'm going right back to my original philosophy. That's why it's love first, wisdom second. There are many things that I keep myself ignorant about. Because
Mm-hmm.
if I get those things into my head, then I'm going to start acting subconsciously in that direction. If someone says, "Oh, you're destined to have a bad day tomorrow," well, I'm already thinking that tomorrow's going to be a bad day, so I'm working towards that outcome. I'm creating a reality that causes it. Now, is there influences? Absolutely, through the tides and through the different placements of the sun and the moon and the structure of our galaxy. Most definitely. I truly believe that. It's above my pay grade because I don't have the patience nor the knowledge to get too far involved with all the different coordinates. That's just not my bag. But I do know that there is a functionality there. And I do
Mm-hmm.
recognize that there is a correlation. But what Sterling is saying, I'm right there with you. If someone is telling me tomorrow's going to be a bad day, damn it, because I wanted to make it a good one. And
Well,
now I
and
might struggle a little more because I am still in a human brain.
well, I thought for the longest, because I love information, but I didn't really
Yes.
fall in love with astrology from a functional perspective. I can read charts and I do it very well, but
Mhm.
I think my intuition backs a lot of that up, frankly. So it's like, well, I thought, oh, I'll just highlight all of the good transits all year. Do you know how many times I've looked at that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, for
Yeah.
real. I mean, and I thought I would. I thought I'd be like, oh, I'll know all the good stuff. Like, I'm so impatient. I hit you up in a week and said, hey, can we do this? And you said yes. And a month, like 3 weeks later, we're doing it. I didn't really check any charts for that. And maybe, and in the numerology world, I'm in my enemy year. So everything I start this year should be bad. And I'm like, no, I don't live like that. I don't believe in that. I'm
And
sorry.
that's exactly right. And
We
again,
can't.
I really want to preface this by saying I have a great deal of respect for those that are astrologists that do look at the
I love
timings
it.
and do look at the way things are flowing. And I do find that valuable. And if I had that, I would, especially all the good stuff, hey, I'm right on board. Let's get the good going on. But when someone is also sharing this is a bad time for me, I don't want that to be pre-programmed in my subconscious to let me know that I don't have to succeed because the charts are telling me I'm not supposed to. That's
I
my biggest issue with that type of awareness.
I was thinking about, and I might cut this. I don't know yet. So far, we haven't cut anything really from these though. But I have been thinking about if I do go into a teaching thing in a local space, I do think I would approach this topic because I think that there's a lot of really good education that can be done in a way that is not um sear what do you call it? Searing out, like SEIR or SEER, for bad.
Right.
It's like there's really beautiful ways to look at this as opportunities. And
Yes.
I wish that people also recognize that you having, like, based on so much bio individuality or star individuality, it's like you transiting what do you call it, the retrograde,
Hmm.
because of whatever your intimate dynamics are, you might do incredibly well
Yes.
in this one.
Yes.
And then so it's like, if people realize and they don't want to, because it is kind of stressful, that it's hard to remember, but it's like, no, there's a lot of beauty. And one thing I love the most about astrology, and if I ever go into doing this for money, really, I love the outlook and the understanding it gives to your children, like from a
Yes.
parent to a child. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, to me, that's the meat and potatoes of why this is valuable, because I do think certain things show up as far as um, interests you're going to naturally be in tune with,
Yes.
uh, and
I
traits
love
that you
that.
might not like. So if we
Yes.
understand that, so I always say, like, oh my God, like I just told this family, like, when your grandbaby's born, just send me the chart. I'd love to look at it, because I think that's not to write
Absolutely.
someone's fate, but to
No.
say, I get excited about, like, oh my God, this person's going to really be introverted. Or, oh my gosh, maybe they won't. Da, 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 da,
Right.
da.
And I love what you just said. Not to write one's fate.
No, God, no.
That's exactly what this is really leading towards. We're not saying it's bad or good or any, and we're not bashing anything. We're simply saying that this is another amazing tool. Please, please understand that. But if you only use it to satisfy an unsuccessful storyline, then you're not participating in that realm correctly. And that's
Oh,
what I'm.
please.
Yes. Well, it's the equivalent, and I'm gonna narrow it down to a very easy to apply level. If it's Monday and I'm told that it's going to rain Friday, well, it might. I mean, there's a lot of statistical reasons to say that if you've been watching the weather, right? Okay.
That's so perfect, especially in Texas.
Exactly. But if I go ahead and plan everything around not being out of doors, if I cancel, I need to walk. It's my new exercise regimen, right? So now I can't walk Friday because it's going to rain. So I've shut down my Friday because
Mm.
of rain. Well, maybe it rains for 13 to 15 minutes. I don't know why I heard 13 minutes. That's weird. Um,
Oh, that is
maybe
funny.
that is weird. I don't know why I thought that. But
13's a
maybe
lucky number, though.
it is. It rains for 15 minutes and the sun comes out. Or maybe by Friday, there's no more rain in the forecast, but I've already determined that my Friday is pre-programmed, predetermined based on an assessment that I got on Monday. So I know that's just basically just the bare bones kind of look at it. But think of it that way. If I lived my life based on that, I would probably miss a lot of opportunities. Now, I know that there's someone out there that's thinking, well, what if it does rain and you're the fool out there walking around because you didn't think it was going to rain and we told you it would? Then I guess I'm the fool out there walking in the
Well,
rain.
and it's the risk assessment too. It's like
Assessment.
there are things because the flip side of what you just said and equally as valuable, but depending on how much you want your car washed. But it's like I'm the type to where if I look and I see, oh, it's going to rain tomorrow, I won't go wash my car. But then if it
Right.
doesn't rain tomorrow, now I'm risking 4 more days, my car looking kind of trash, and I care about stuff like that. So that's the risk reward system is I can either get it washed and have
Yes.
that clean now, risk the money kind of quote unquote being out by it raining tomorrow and having to wash it. But like my need was met, or was it? Which did I need more?
Exactly. It is a
Like
risk or reward.
that's the
Yeah.
thing. And that's why I think like that's why I like I find looking at personal astrology charts also very, for me at least, because you know my shame and guilt complex in life. It's very forgiving, I feel, for people because I've been doing these readings, but just not, you know, I feel like I need to be very good at it before I take anything. But it's so forgiving because it's like if it's built kind of in that you're going to have some issues with self-esteem, then thank God. You know what I mean? Like, because then thank goodness that there is some aspect of this where, especially I've seen it in circumstances where mom and dad are both really confident. So the kid can't really even understand how they wound up not being.
Right.
And it's like, well, there's argument that sometimes the tides of confidence were out when you were born and you got to go swim to them. And that's your own, we all got our crosses to bear. So I think that there's some beauty in taking some stress off of ourselves when it comes
Yes.
to our own isms, because we all
Yes.
have them. And it's weird that there's a map for them. And, you know, maybe you believe that, maybe you don't. But I've seen it enough times where I'm like, well, there's something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very,
Makes
for me
sense.
at least, it's very like, okay, I might be a little bit neurotic. Cool. Like I might be this. Cool. I don't have to go break myself to try and not be that. I can just work around it and make it to where I can live with that, you know? I don't know.
Exactly.
I found it beautiful in that way, but I've never been exposed to someone who mistreats the topic. So I'm sure, you know, there's versions of it that are pretty harsh.
Well, and absolutely. And, you know, getting back to the original part of that, which was someone who was basing their ability to look for work or the fact of not looking for work during these instances, these times of you know, Mercury. Again, that we're taking that as the focal point of what we're saying to you is you cannot live your life solely based on this type of preparation. You have to live your life out loud, use some of your own intuition, use some of your own needs. I mean, if I'm looking for a job, I'm not going to wait 3 weeks for the clouds to clear. I'm going to go out there and put food on my table today. So again, it's not a judgment. We're not being judgy. We're just simply saying, if this is the plan of action, just be mindful that you still are in the driver's seat of this choice. And that's what we're leading to.
And, you know, I had somebody ask me this at work the other day. So I do want to say this about the way I perceive the planets and how they affect us, because in my world, to me, they act like spotlights. And
That
each
makes
one
sense.
has a
Yep.
vibration.
I love that.
So when we go to Mars, we think of things that excite us, things that invigorate us, things that make us want to go get something that we want. So there's a
Yes.
greed element. So for when that's in place in a certain way, it's shining. So if you have a natural,
Absolutely.
if that's in your energy, you're going to respond to that. If you're naturally very calm, cool, and collected, you're not going to love it as much. If you're that aggressive energy, you're going to feel like you're in hog heaven. You know, and so it's just depending on what the spotlight is and what
Yes.
your relationship with that spotlight energy looks like.
Absolutely.
And it can just highlight where you can grow too.
Right.
Because if every time Mars is in a direct position, which means action, and you freeze, then there's something there about that there's something in you that says, if I have to go into action, I feel not confident and now I'm scared. So Mars will always make you feel scared because
Right.
you don't trust yourself. So when people try to say, well, why are these things affecting us at all? It's highlighted energy, and what happens under it for you, very vastly different each time and for each person.
Well
and under each
spoken.
sign, you know. But it's more like, yeah, it's just how the vibe is. Like people say vibe check, it's like
Hmm.
they're just highlighting certain vibes, kind of working in a soup that is the astrology.
Yes.
Like, but we're still responsible for what we do. They don't make us do anything. They just
No.
make us, we respond to them. But the action of I'm going to put in I need a new job. There's Mars isn't going to make you do that. Jupiter's not going to make you do that. They don't care if you get the job or not. They're not waiting around for your success or failures.
No.
It's like that's our willpower. That's our God given, like that fire. It's like we get to decide what we do underneath these energies that we can't really stop or affect.
Absolutely. Bingo. You did that
Yay!
so well.
But anyways, I know that was kind of a
like
tangent,
that.
and I know that I've got to, Miss Terry, you are always the one with no blank spaces, and we love that. I always say she doesn't know blank spaces on her schedule.
Well, that's why I go out of town, out of state a couple times
I'm
a
so
year. That's my
excited. So
days
where are you
off.
going? Florida?
Yes, I'm going to
Yay!
Florida, and I'm not looking at any charts. Don't show me
I
it's going to
know.
rain. Don't
Nope.
show me anything. I'm going to go, and I'm going to take it like it is.
Yay!
But I'm leaving for Florida the 21st for 1 week.
Oh, good.
I'm going
good.
to. Well, I'm trying. I'm fighting with myself to take my laptop or not take my laptop. We'll see who wins, right? I'm a Gemini.
I saw that in real time. We just saw that.
Well, I'm still there, that's for sure. We'll see what gets packed and what doesn't.
Oh, Lord have
But yes, I'm
mercy.
leaving for a week. And yes, life is
Good.
busy. I've got a wonderful class tonight. I've got some wonderful clients today. I've got 46 text messages from the weekend I haven't responded to because I was busy with the expo.
Lord
And
have
that's just
mercy.
Texas. I haven't looked at my voicemails. I think my mailbox is full. Folks, if you get my voicemail and
Maybe
it's
that's
full,
the blessing here.
that's a blessing. That's right. That means you're not supposed to call me. No, just kidding. That just means I
Oh my
haven't
God.
gotten to it the day or that hour or whatever it may be. I'm looking forward to talking to each and every one of you. If you do have questions, Sterling's going to give that spiel too today. If you have questions, we like questions. Don't bash us. We won't bash you. Give us some
Yes.
good questions. If you've got feedback, send a review.
And I am opening up a Reddit underneath the Wolf and the Bear, so I'm going to get some questions going there.
Oh,
sort
I
of
love it.
Get kind of talking to more people that aren't necessarily needing to watch what we do, and I kind of want to open up and see, because I know that there are questions of the spiritual nature. So
Oh,
be curious to
absolutely.
see, what people ask in the name of anonymous, because I do think that
Well,
there's safety there, and I like that. We're here
I
for
like
it.
that too. Hey, I'm up for it all. Again, this is something that we do from love. We do it from passion to help people. It's we're not trying to tweak anyone and get you all upset. We're simply letting you see it from different perspectives. Hopefully, you will understand that and thrive through some of these podcasts with us.
Oh, and I did get my first feedback from somebody that we know that's listening, and it was a little bit weird because they were saying like topics we talked about, and it's weird to think in my mind. I'm like, well, I had that as a one-on-one conversation, and then for her to be like, and then we were talking about the dogs. I was like, we did talk about the dogs. It's just kind of fun. I thought that was a really cool, and thank goodness they were being supportive. But they were just like, yeah, we love this. We really enjoyed just the.
I've gotten some good feedback too. Again, we're not going to sit here. I can tell you right now, Sterling is very, she's very smart for one thing. She's much smarter than I am. And I'm going to accept that very, very gracefully. But but we do try to keep it real. We do try to keep it in a way, in a setting that's wholesome and comforting. And you want to feel the love from us because that's what we're sending out as we're doing this. We're not always going to agree with your opinion, and you're not always going to agree with our opinion. That's the beauty of having our right to have and believe in what we want to. But we are grateful.
We admit we're strong. We're strong energies. We have opinions.
We are strong energy. Someone told me that, and I'm thinking, I heard that the other day. They said, man, you're a strong energy. And I thought, now is it because I am weird energy? Or because I was like, maybe I'm just weird.
Oh, no. I think that, it's a mixture, I would say. It's kinetic potential because you can feel around certain people what the capability could be if things are upset and agitated. And then I think also too, for you specifically though, it's almost like there comes a point where people innately understand if you're getting to the point where you're serious and you're speaking and you have something to share. I do think that there's a natural, they're like, yeah, we'll listen. It's that
Oh,
strength of that. So it's two pronged, I would say, in some cases. But
I'll take it.
for what we do, I don't know that you can be particularly gentle, because we're present in two worlds and we're asking for
Yes.
control in two worlds sometimes.
And
So that I don't think that comes with a weakness.
that makes a lot of sense.
But be
Very
that as
good.
it may, we have done it. If you need to reach us, I'm going to drop all of the information below. Terry, you can find her at vitaperceptions.com. Vita, VITA, means life. Also the name of your beautiful baby cat that I love so much. And then you can find her on the second episode of Haunted on Netflix, as she kind of goes into some parts of what it was like in her upbringing. And then the book about that as well, under the pen name ATAC. And it
I
is
got my book
Altered
right here
Grace.
if you want to see a copy of it.
Yes, please. And this is, again, what I'm going to read. I'm nervous too before I interview you for a special segment here on the pod. That's another thing we're going to do, is we will be having specialty episodes. It'll either just be me or Terry with us, and we will be kind of interviewing people that sort of just, we take people down a little bit of who they are, and it's less about, I feel like we stay on topic with spirit and understanding it and kind of talking about it on an educational perspective. But I'm very curious to just dig into some people that I think have a lot of background in spirituality and address them as people. So I'm looking very forward to that. Terry, of course, will be the first of those episodes.
You're in trouble.
No, I'm very excited. And then I will be linking the Reddit page as well in a later time, not right now. We will have a Discord, which will be something that I'm very curious about to investigate, but that'll be later on the timeline. So we can look forward to that. But find us on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. And again, all of that will be linked below. And do comment. Do also feel free to send us an email, sophiasterling@gmail.com, if you have any questions about the podcast or us in general. And then if you want to book with us as well, vitaperceptions@gmail.com for Terry, and then sophiasterling@gmail.com for me. But
and you can check
I
out
think
my
you guys are the
website
best.
too.
It's again.
They can check out my website and see what's out there at vitaperceptions.com.
Perfect. And all of this will be one click away. So we will see you guys next time. And once again, Terry, I love you to death. I'm so grateful we do this.
I love you to death. And as Brutus chimes in, we've done it.
We've done it. All right. I will talk to you again, probably before you go out of town, but I love you to death. And
love you to death.
Chat soon.
Hey, live life out loud, folks. It's all about
live, laugh, love. Have you seen that video?
Yes.
There's a guy who goes into an Airbnb. He's like, now we got to live, love, laugh. And then he goes to like the lampshade. He's like, now we got to laugh, love, live. And then he goes to like the little napkin. It says, now we got to live, love, laugh. And it's like all the different ways. It's so funny.
Oh my God, I love that.
Okay. I love you to death. I'll let you go.
Bye.